Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The dull hum of the office air conditioner mingles with the steady click-clack of keyboards and the occasional ring of phones. It's the soundtrack of my day-to-day life, the white noise of corporate monotony that I've grown accustomed to since I started working at my father's company. For months, I've been telling myself this is just a temporary gig until I figure out my own path, but the longer I stay, the more I feel the weight of expectation. After all, when your father is a supervisor, the bar is set high. "Daniel, are you joining us for the meeting?" My dad's voice snaps me out of my thoughts. He's standing in the doorway of my small office, his broad frame filling the space. My dad, Paul Armstrong, is a man who commands respect, not just because of his title, but because of his presence. He's been with the company for over 20 years, and there's not a person here who doesn't know his name. "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute," I reply, offering him a tight smile. He nods and closes the door behind him. I glance at my phone, hoping for a message from Emily. Emily. The thought of her brings a smile to my face, even in the middle of this corporate chaos. We've been dating for a few months, and it's been great. She's everything I didn't know I was looking for: smart, funny, and drop-dead gorgeous. But more than that, she's real. In a world full of pretense, she's someone I can be myself with. The meeting goes as expected, a lot of talk about sales figures and quarterly projections. I nod along, pretending to absorb the information, but my mind is elsewhere. I'm thinking about the weekend. Emily and I are supposed to go away for a couple of days, just to escape the city and unwind. I'm excited. It's been a while since I've been able to really relax. "Daniel, what's your take on this?" My dad's voice cuts through my daydream. "Sorry, can you repeat that?" I ask, trying to mask my distraction. He gives me a look, one that says he knows exactly where my mind is, and then repeats the question. I manage to mumble something that sounds halfway intelligent, and the meeting moves on. Later that afternoon, I'm back in my office, going through the motions of my job when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Emily. "Emily, hey, can we talk later? I need to discuss something with you." A knot forms in my stomach. It's the kind of message that never leads to anything good, but I push the worry aside. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe she just wants to talk about the weekend. "Everything okay?" My dad's voice startles me again. I look up to see him standing in the doorway, concern etched on his face. I didn't even hear him knock. "Yeah, everything's fine," I lie. "Just work stuff." He nods, but his eyes linger on me a moment longer before he turns and walks away. That evening, I head home, expecting to meet Emily and get whatever is on her mind out in the open. I'm nervous, but I keep telling myself it's probably nothing. She's been busy with work lately, so maybe she's just stressed. As I unlock the door to my apartment, I notice the lights are already on. Strange. Emily usually waits for me to get home before she lets herself in, but maybe she's just trying to surprise me. I push the door open, and what I see makes my heart stop. Emily is standing in the living room, but she's not alone. My dad is there too. They don't see me at first, they're too caught up in each other. Emily is half naked, wearing only one of my dad's shirts. She's laughing, a sound I used to love, but now it feels like a punch to the gut. She's playing with his tie, tugging on it flirtatiously, and he's grinning like I've never seen him grin before. My mind can't process what I'm seeing. My feet are frozen to the ground. "Dad?" The word slips out before I can stop it, my voice trembling with disbelief. Both of them whip around, their expressions morphing from delight to horror in an instant. Emily's eyes widen as she scrambles to cover herself, while my dad's face turns pale. "Daniel." My dad starts, but he doesn't finish. There's nothing he can say to make this right. Emily's mouth opens and closes, but no words come out. She looks at me, her eyes pleading, but I don't want to hear anything she has to say. The sight of them together, so intimate, so wrong, makes my blood boil. I want to scream, to yell, to punch something, but all I can do is stand there, numb. How could you? I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not even sure who I'm talking to, my dad, who should have known better, or Emily, who has shattered every ounce of trust one had in her. Daniel, I didn't know. I didn't know she was your girlfriend, my dad says, his voice thick with regret. My eyes dart to Emily, searching for some sign of remorse, but all I see is guilt. She knows she's been caught, and there's no excuse that will save her. You didn't know. I laugh, but it's a bitter, hollow sound. Well, now you do. I hope it was worth it. With that, I turn on my heel and walk out, slamming the door behind me. I don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay here. My mind is racing, thoughts swirling around in a chaotic mess. Emily. My dad. How could they do this to me? I wander the streets for hours, replaying the scene in my head over and over until it's burned into my memory. Eventually, I end up at a bar, drowning my sorrows in whiskey. The burn in my throat is nothing compared to the ache in my chest. By the time I stumble home, the apartment is dark and empty. Emily is gone, and so is my dad. The silence is deafening, but it's better than facing them again. I collapse onto the couch, too exhausted to think anymore. As I drift off to sleep, one thought lingers in my mind: this isn't over. Not by a long shot. I'll make sure of that. The harsh light of the morning sun cuts through the blinds, dragging me unwillingly out of sleep. My head pounds from the whiskey, but it's the memory of last night that hits harder. My eyes open to the all-too-familiar sight of my apartment's ceiling, but it feels like everything has changed. The events of the previous night replay in my mind like a nightmare I can't escape: Emily with my dad, her laughter, his smile. I sit up, feeling the weight of it all pressed down on my chest. I know I can't avoid the inevitable confrontation, but I'm not sure I'm ready for it either. My phone buzzes on the coffee table, and I snatch it up, half expecting a message from Emily. Instead, it's from Nick, my best friend and the one person who's always been there for me. Nick, yo, we still on for lunch? I stare at the message, contemplating whether I should tell him everything that's happened. If there's anyone who will understand, it's Nick. He's seen me at my worst and still stuck around. I type out a quick reply. Me, yeah, I'll meet you at the usual spot. I drag myself into the shower, the hot water doing little to wash away the anger simmering under my skin. By the time I'm dressed and out the door, I've decided that talking to Nick is the only thing that might keep me from losing it completely. The diner we always meet at is a small, unassuming place tucked away on a side street. The kind of place where the coffee is always hot and the waitress knows your name. Nick is already there when I arrive, sitting in our usual booth by the window. He looks up as I slide into the seat across from him. Dude, you look like shit, he says, his brow furrowing with concern. Nice to see you too, I reply, my voice more bitter than I intend. Nick raises an eyebrow, waiting for me to spill whatever's on my mind. What's going on? You've got that look, like someone just ran over your dog. I take a deep breath, the words sticking in my throat. Finally, I just blurt it out. Emily cheated on me. Nick's eyes widen in shock. What? Are you serious? With who? I hesitate for a moment, then force the words out. With my dad. For a moment, Nick just stares at me, like he can't quite process what I've just said. Then, his face twists in a mix of anger and disbelief. What the hell, man? Are you okay? Do I look okay? I snap, immediately regretting the harshness of my tone. I sigh and rub a hand over my face. Sorry, it's a lot to process. Nick shakes his head, leaning back in his seat. No, I get it. That's that's messed up on so many levels. I walked in on them last night, I continue, my voice hollow. In my apartment. She was half naked, and he didn't even know she was my girlfriend. Nick lets out a low whistle. That's cold. What did you do? I left. I couldn't even look at them. I pause, the memory of their shocked faces still fresh in my mind. I don't know what to do now. Part of me wants to just walk away and never look back, but another part of me. I want to make her pay for what she did. Nick's eyes narrow, a dangerous glint in them. And what about your dad? What does he have to say for himself? He said he didn't know, I mutter, the anger in my chest flaring up again. But that doesn't make it any better. Nick is quiet for a moment, then leans forward, his voice low. Listen, man, if you want to get back at her, I'm with you. Whatever you need. I look at him, the sincerity in his eyes giving me a strange sense of comfort. Nick has always been the type to take action, to jump headfirst into the fire without a second thought. It's one of the reasons we've been friends for so long. There's more, I say, my mind racing. I need to figure out what she was really after. This whole thing feels like it was planned. Why would she get involved with my dad? Nick nods slowly, the gears in his mind turning. Sounds like she had an agenda. Maybe she was trying to get something from him, from the company. I hadn't even thought of that. My dad's position at the company isn't just about status, it comes with access, with influence. If Emily was after something, it wouldn't be hard for her to figure out how to use me to get to him. We need to dig deeper, Nick says, his voice taking on that determined edge I know so well. Find out what she's really up to. And if she's playing some kind of game, we'll make sure she loses. I nod, feeling a surge of determination. I'm not going to let her get away with this. Not after everything she's done. Our conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the waitress, a woman in her mid-50s with kind eyes and a perpetual smile. She sets down our usual orders without asking, black coffee for me, a bacon cheeseburger for Nick, and gives us a curious look. You boys okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I force a smile, not wanting to drag her into the mess that is my life. Just a rough night, that's all. She pats my shoulder sympathetically before heading off to another table. I sip my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me in the moment. We should start by checking out Emily's background, Nick suggests, his mind already a few steps ahead. Maybe she's done this before, or maybe there's something in her past that'll give us a clue. I'll see what I can dig up, I agree, already making a mental note to go through her social media and any other sources I can think of. Good. And I'll keep an eye on things at the office. Maybe there's something going on there that'll connect the dots. Nick and I spend the next hour hashing out a plan, our food growing cold as we dive deeper into the details. By the time we leave the diner, I feel like I have some semblance of control over the situation. It's a small comfort, but it's better than feeling helpless. As I step out into the bright midday sun, I know one thing for sure, this is far from over. Emily and my dad have made their move, and now it's my turn. And I'm not going to stop until I've uncovered every lie, every secret they've been hiding. Nick claps me on the shoulder as we part ways. Hang in there, man. We'll get through this. Thanks, Nick, I say, grateful for his unwavering support. I'll keep you updated. We go our separate ways, and I head back to my apartment. The place feels different now, like it's been tainted by what happened. But I push that feeling aside and focus on the task at hand. I start with Emily's social media, scrolling through her posts, her pictures, looking for anything out of the ordinary. Hours pass as I dig deeper, but it's not until I come across an old message thread that I find something suspicious. It's from a guy named Jason, someone she used to work with at her previous job. The messages are casual at first, but there's a shift in tone that catches my eye. Jason is asking about some project she was involved in, something she was supposed to keep quiet about. The conversation is vague, but it's enough to raise red flags. I make a mental note to dig into this Jason guy later, but for now, I need to focus on Emily. There's more to this than just a simple affair, and I'm determined to find out what it is. As the sun sets and the shadows grow longer, I know one thing for sure, I'm just getting started. Emily played me, but she underestimated who she was dealing with. And now, it's time to turn the tables. The next morning, I wake up with a renewed sense of purpose. The anger that had consumed me last night has solidified into something sharper, more focused. If Emily thinks she can play me, she's about to learn just how wrong she is. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, sipping on my third cup of coffee when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Nick. Nick, found something interesting. Meet at the office at 10. My heart skips a beat. I've been digging through Emily's digital trail all night, but so far, all I've uncovered is that she's a lot more secretive than I realized. If Nick has found something, it could be the break we need. I'll be there. I quickly shower and get dressed, throwing on the first thing I can find. The drive to the office is a blur, my mind racing with possibilities. By the time I arrive, my hands are practically shaking with anticipation. Nick is waiting for me in the lobby, his expression serious. He doesn't say anything, just jerks his head toward the elevators. We ride up in silence, the tension between us thick enough to cut with a knife. Once we're in his office, Nick closes the door behind us and gestures for me to sit. He walks around to his desk and pulls up something on his computer before turning the screen toward me. What am I looking at? I ask, leaning forward to get a better look. This is the employee database, Nick explains. I was going through some records, just to see if there was anything off about Emily's employment history. And then I found this. He clicks on a file and opens it. It's a background check, the kind the company runs on all employees before hiring them. Except this one isn't for Emily. It's for someone named Jennifer Blake, Nick says, pointing to the name at the top of the file. Who the hell is Jennifer Blake? I ask, frowning in confusion. That's what I wondered too, Nick replies. So I did some more digging. And it turns out, Jennifer Blake doesn't exist. At least, not in any way that matters. No social security number, no tax records, nothing. I stare at him, the pieces of the puzzle starting to come together. You're saying Emily isn't who she says she is? Nick nods. Exactly. I don't know how she managed to get past HR, but she's been using a fake identity since she started working here. And it gets worse. He clicks on another file, this one a series of emails between Emily, under her fake name, and someone named Jason. The same Jason from the message thread I found last night. These emails are encrypted, Nick explains. But I was able to crack a few of them. They're talking about some kind of deal, something big. I read through the emails, my mind racing. They're discussing plans, timelines, but it's all vague, like they're being deliberately careful. One thing is clear though, whatever this deal is, it involves my father's company. We need to figure out what they're planning, I say, my voice tight with determination. I'm way ahead of you, Nick replies, already pulling up another file. I traced the emails back to a private server. It's been wiped clean, but I managed to recover some fragments. He shows me a partial email, just a few sentences, but it's enough to send a chill down my spine. From Jason to Jennifer Blake, Emily, subject, the deal. We're almost ready to move forward. Just waiting on confirmation from Paul. Paul. My father. My stomach twists in knots as the implications hit me. They're using him, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. They're using my dad to get something from the company. Nick nods grimly. Looks like it. And from the looks of it, they're pretty far along with whatever this is. I lean back in my chair, trying to process everything. Emily isn't just a liar, she's a con artist. And she's using my father to pull off some kind of scheme. My mind races with possibilities, each one worse than the last. We need to warn him, I say, standing up abruptly. My dad doesn't know who she really is. We have to tell him. Nick stands too, his expression conflicted. I agree, but we have to be smart about this. If we go in guns blazing, she'll know we're onto her. And we still don't know the full extent of what she's planning. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to think. Nick is right, we need more information. But the thought of my dad being manipulated by Emily makes my blood boil. What do you suggest? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to get closer to her, Nick says, his eyes narrowing in thought. Find out what she's after, who else is involved. But we can't tip our hand. Easier said than done, I mutter, running a hand through my hair. She already knows I'm pissed at her. There's no way I can just pretend everything is fine. Nick nods, considering. That's true. But maybe you don't have to pretend. I frown, not following. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you lean into it, Nick says, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Let her think you're devastated, that you're a wreck. Get her to let her guard down. If she thinks you're too broken to fight back, she might slip up. I consider his words, the idea taking root in my mind. It's risky, but it might just work. Emily thinks she's got me figured out, that I'm too hurt to see through her lies. But if I play my cards right, I can turn the tables on her. Okay, I say slowly. I'll do it. But I need your help. We need to make sure she doesn't suspect a thing. Nick grins, clapping me on the shoulder. Don't worry, man. I've got your back. We'll make sure she never sees it coming. Over the next few days, I put the plan into action. I start showing up at the office looking disheveled, like I haven't slept in days. I avoid talking to anyone, keeping my head down and acting like I'm barely holding it together. Word spreads quickly, and soon, everyone knows that Daniel Armstrong is having a breakdown. Emily, of course, takes notice. She starts sending me texts, trying to reach out, to smooth things over. At first, I ignore her, but eventually, I respond with short, clipped replies, just enough to keep her interested. It's not long before she shows up at my apartment. I'm sitting on the couch, nursing a bottle of whiskey when she walks in. She looks different now that I know the truth, her once irresistible charm now reeks of deception. Daniel, she says softly, closing the door behind her. I'm so sorry about everything. Can we talk? I glance up at her, my eyes dull and lifeless. What's there to talk about? She hesitates, then moves closer, sitting down next to me on the couch. I know I hurt you. I never meant for things to get this complicated. But I still care about you, Daniel. I want to make things right. I can't believe the nerve of her, sitting here and pretending like she's the victim. But I keep my expression blank, letting her think I'm too broken to see through her lies. Make things right? I echo, my voice hollow. How? Maybe we can start over, she suggests, placing a hand on my arm. We can work through this. Just give me a chance. I shake my head, feigning despair. I don't know, Emily. Everything's so messed up. I don't even know who I am anymore. She bites her lip, clearly frustrated by my lack of enthusiasm. But she doesn't give up. You're still you, Daniel. You're just going through a tough time. Let me help you. We can figure this out together. I let out a bitter laugh, pushing her hand away. I don't need your help, Emily. I just need to be alone. She sighs, standing up. I get it. You're hurting. But I'm not giving up on us. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. She leaves the apartment, and as soon as the door clicks shut, I drop the act. The emptiness in my eyes vanishes, replaced by cold determination. She bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And now, I'm going to use every bit of information I gather from her to bring her down. The days pass, and Emily keeps coming around, trying to worm her way back into my life. I let her in, just enough to keep her close, but not enough to let her see that I'm onto her. Meanwhile, Nick and I continue our investigation, digging deeper into her past, her connections, and her plans. It's during one of these meetings with Nick that we uncover the final piece of the puzzle. We're sitting in his office, poring over the emails we've decrypted when Nick suddenly stops, his eyes widening. "Holy shit," he mutters, his face paling. "I think I know what they're after." I look up, my heart racing. "What is it?" Nick turns the screen toward me, showing me a document he's just uncovered. It's a contract, one that details the sale of a significant portion of the company's shares that my dad controls. "They're trying to force a hostile takeover," Nick explains, his voice tight with urgency. "If they get control of those shares, they'll have enough power to do whatever they want with the company." My blood runs cold as the full scope of their plan comes into focus. Emily isn't just trying to con my dad, she's trying to steal the entire company out from under us. "We have to stop this," I say, my voice shaking with anger. "We have to expose her." Nick nods, his jaw set. "We will. But we have to be smart about it. We need solid proof, something that will hold up in court. And we need to move fast before they close the deal." I take a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. Emily thinks she's won, that she's got everything under control. But she doesn't know what's coming. It's time to bring her down, once and for all. The day of reckoning arrives quicker than I expect, but I'm ready. Every detail of our plan has been carefully laid out, every move calculated. I'm done playing the victim. It's time for Emily to face the consequences of her betrayal. Nick and I have spent the past week gathering the final pieces of evidence. We've traced the money, decrypted the emails, and even managed to intercept a phone call between Emily and Jason that confirmed everything. They've been plotting this takeover for months, and now, with my dad unknowingly in their pocket, they're on the brink of success. But they don't know that we're about to flip the script. I'm sitting in my father's office, the tension palpable in the air. He's across from me, fidgeting with a pen, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. I've asked him to meet me here under the pretense of discussing a new project, but the real reason is far more serious. "Dad," I begin, choosing my words carefully. "There's something I need to tell you. It's about Emily." His brow furrows, and he sets the pen down, giving me his full attention. "What about her?" I take a deep breath, steadying myself. "She's not who she says she is. Her real name is Jennifer Blake, and she's been using us, to orchestrate a hostile takeover of the company." He blinks, the words taking a moment to register. When they do, his expression shifts from confusion to disbelief, and finally to anger. "What the hell are you talking about, Daniel? This is ridiculous." "It's true, Dad," I insist, leaning forward. "Nick and I have been investigating her. We've uncovered emails, documents, everything. She's been working with a man named Jason, and together, they've been manipulating you into signing away your shares." My father's face pales, but he still looks uncertain. This can't be. Emily wouldn't do something like that." "She would, and she has," I say firmly. "She's been lying to us from the start. Everything she's done has been to gain your trust and get her hands on this company." For a moment, my father just stares at me, his eyes searching mine for any sign of deception. But there's none to find. Finally, he exhales sharply, running a hand through his graying hair. "Do you have proof?" I nod, reaching into my bag and pulling out a folder filled with the evidence we've gathered. "Everything is in here. The emails, the bank transfers, even a transcript of the phone call where she and Jason discussed their plan." He takes the folder with shaking hands, flipping through the pages. As he reads, his face hardens, the realization of what's been happening slowly sinking in. "I can't believe this," he murmurs, more to himself than to me. "I trusted her. I trusted you." "I know," I say quietly. "And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. But we can stop this, Dad. We can expose her and take back control." He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "How?" I explain the plan to him, laying out each step in detail. "We're going to confront Emily at the board meeting this afternoon, where she and Jason plan to finalize the takeover. We'll present the evidence to the board and publicly expose their scheme. It's a risky move, but it's our best chance at stopping them." My father nods, his jaw set with determination. "Let's do it." The hours leading up to the meeting are tense. Nick and I go over the plan one last time, making sure everything is in place. The boardroom is packed when we arrive, the air thick with anticipation. Emily is there, sitting at the head of the table, her face calm and composed. Jason is beside her, a smug grin on his face. They have no idea what's coming. My father and I take our seats, and the meeting begins. Emily stands up, launching into a well-rehearsed speech about the future of the company, how this new direction will benefit everyone. I can see the board members nodding along, completely unaware of the deception unfolding before them. I wait until she's nearly finished before I make my move. "Excuse me, Emily," I say, cutting her off mid-sentence. "I think there's something the board needs to see before we proceed." She turns to me, her smile faltering slightly. "Daniel, this isn't the time." "No, this is exactly the time," I interrupt, standing up and placing the folder on the table. "You've been lying to all of us, Emily. Or should I say, Jennifer." The room goes silent, all eyes on her. For a moment, she's frozen, her expression a mask of shock. Then, she recovers, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says, her voice cold. "Yes, you do," I reply, flipping open the folder and sliding the documents toward the board members. "These are emails between you and Jason, discussing your plans to take over the company. You've been using a fake identity, manipulating my father to get what you want." The board members start flipping through the pages, their expressions ranging from confusion to anger as they realize what's happening. Emily's mask of composure cracks, and she glances at Jason, who looks just as panicked. "This is absurd," she snaps, trying to regain control. "These documents are fabricated. This is a smear campaign." "It's the truth," I say, my voice steady. "And we have all the proof we need. You've been caught, Emily." For a moment, the tension in the room is unbearable. Then, Jason stands up, grabbing the documents and tearing them up. "This is nonsense," he shouts, his face red with anger. "You're just trying to sabotage us because you're jealous." I don't flinch, meeting his gaze head-on. "The truth is out, Jason. There's no point in denying it." But before I can continue, my father stands up, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Enough." The room falls silent again as everyone turns to look at him. He's holding one of the torn documents, his expression grim. "I've seen enough," he says, his voice firm. "You've betrayed my trust, Emily. You and Jason both. You're finished here." Emily opens her mouth to protest, but my father cuts her off. "Security will escort you out. If you try to fight this, I'll press charges. And believe me, with the evidence we have, you won't stand a chance." Emily's face drains of color, and she looks at me, her eyes wide with desperation. "Daniel, please, don't do this. We can work something out." I shake my head, my voice cold. "There's nothing to work out. You played your hand, and you lost." She looks around the room, searching for support, but finds none. The board members are already turning against her, their expressions hardening as they realize the extent of her betrayal. Jason, seeing that the game is up, grabs his briefcase and storms out of the room without another word. Emily watches him go, a look of disbelief on her face. Then, with one last pleading glance at me, she follows him out. The room is left in stunned silence as the door closes behind them. My father sits down heavily, running a hand over his face. "That was intense," Nick murmurs, leaning over to me. "But we did it." I nod, but I don't feel the victory I expected. Instead, I feel a hollow emptiness, the weight of everything that's happened settling in. The meeting wraps up quickly after that, the board members eager to distance themselves from the scandal. My father and I exchange a few words, but there's a distance between us now, a gap that wasn't there before. He thanks me for what I've done, but it feels hollow, like something between us has been irreparably damaged. As I leave the building, I see Emily and Jason standing outside, arguing quietly. She looks up as I pass, her eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and regret. I pause for a moment, meeting her gaze. "Goodbye, Emily," I say, my voice devoid of emotion. She doesn't respond, just watches me with a look of sadness. I walk away without looking back, knowing that this is the end. Nick catches up to me as I reach the parking lot. "You okay?" he asks, his tone softer now. "Yeah," I reply, though the word feels heavy in my mouth. "It's over." We stand there for a moment, the weight of the past few weeks hanging between us. Finally, Nick sighs, clapping me on the shoulder. "Let's get out of here," he says. "You could use a drink." I nod, grateful for his presence. As we drive away from the office, the reality of what's happened begins to sink in. I've lost Emily, my father's trust is shattered, and the company I once thought I'd inherit is now tainted by betrayal. But I've also uncovered the truth, and in the end, that's what matters. Emily's gone, and with her, the web of lies she spun. It's a bitter victory, but it's mine. As the city lights blur past, I know that things will never be the same. Emily and I are finished, our paths forever divided by the choices we made. And while the scars of betrayal will take time to heal, I know that I'll come out stronger on the other side. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, I feel a sense of clarity. I've faced the worst, and I've come through it. And now, it's time to rebuild, to find my own path, free from the shadows of the past. I turn to Nick, who's watching the road ahead with a thoughtful expression. "Thanks for everything, man. I don't know what I would have done without you." He grins, giving me a sideways glance. "Anytime, Daniel. That's what friends are for." We drive on, leaving the past behind us, the night unfolding before us with the promise of new beginnings.